Today we're going to talk about experiencing the true self along with what we might call emotional pain. So we've already talked about different ways that we can question our thoughts and discover how every situation has been right, has been perfect for us. But what may remain is this residual emotional hurt. Some people might call it an emotional wound. So I'm going to use an example, and that is I had come up with this interpretation that I was bad, unworthy, and that I deserved to die. So even after I had seen through the situations where I had made that interpretation, I still had this habit that would come up in other situations of feeling this unworthiness and badness. So I found that the spaciousness, the ever-present awareness, was drawn to this pain, was curious about it, did not reject it. And so I started exploring it. First, I noticed how it engendered this reactivity. For example, if a friend asked to borrow money and I said no, my no might not be simple. It might be complicated with defenses and explanations and justifications. Likewise, when I cooked a meal that I really liked, if I knew it wasn't one of my fiance's favorites, I might start doing justifications and explanations about why I had cooked that meal. So I started to really feel into this pattern. I also noticed that it came with a physical sensation. And the physical sensation for me was this cold, hard constriction that retreated from my solar plexus back to my back. And I found myself being curious about this. So the compassion drew me to sit with this feeling. And so I started taking about 10 minutes a day for several weeks to just feel the sensation, journal what it felt, cry, listen to music. And I really loved that tender compassion that it evoked from me. I started feeling how the true self loved this opportunity to have a fuller expression of its lovingness as it got to be with the hurt place. I also noticed that the reactivity that I had during the day would release. And instead, there was the compassion and the space coming up. And as I attended more to all that was around my experience of this, I noticed that many of my own mental habits were actually reinforcing this woundedness. Because I was mentally scanning other people's feelings and checking to see if they were okay having me around, if I had pleased them, if I had justified my existence, if I had not hurt them. And this mental scanning was subtly reinforcing this idea that I was only okay if everything else outside me was okay. And so it was keeping the persistence of this painful unworthiness. And when I saw that, I started to realign my actions and my mental habits with the truth that I knew. And I relaxed that extra attending. And I just settled into a more authentic expression, accepting how things would flow, trusting the universe more. So all of this together started to cause an opening in this hurt place. So I found myself both being grateful for it and experiencing it diminishing. And I also learned that loving myself was not loving my ideas of myself, my identity, who I hope to be. Loving myself was loving the experiences coming through me, whether the outside situations or the inner experiences. So I'm offering this to you with places where you've questioned your thoughts, you no longer see that there's a wound left, and yet the emotional wound persists. You can take time to be with it, to bring spacious compassion to it, and to allow the natural lovingness of your tenderness and your vulnerability to embrace it. And you can look at your mental habits with vigilance and start bringing them into alignment with what you know to be true. Start making sure that your mental habits are not reinforcing your woundedness. And as you do this, really allow yourself to have that present moment awareness and spaciousness that embraces all of your experience, for this is loving yourself. And as you do this, you can find the experience of the true self filtering down into every level of your being. The true self is all of us. And as you do that, you can find yourself embracing things that look like wounds and exploring them tenderly.